On October 25th, 2023, near the city of Asbest in Russia, a woman named Oksana Kuzmenko has been kidnapped. She has been brutally attacked in a horrific ordeal. She now finds herself in the back seat of a car. Her assailant, Oleg Sheloglegin, at the wheel. Oleg is driving her to a remote wooded area where he intends to finally kill her and bury her remains. Oksana is in a state of utter shock. Her bones are broken. She is bleeding profusely. Burns cover her body from head to toe. Despite her injuries, as the car is in motion, a flicker of hope ignites within her, and summoning every ounce of strength, she attempts to leap from the car. Chaos ensues as other drivers witness her desperate situation. They rush to her aid, while Oleg flees the scene on foot. Miraculously, Oksana survives the brutal attack, but just barely. She has endured one of the most harrowing ordeals I've ever covered. I wanted to cover this case, as although I normally cover murder, this story really stuck with me. It's also nice that this time the woman, Oksana, managed to survive due to her own bravery and spirit. But just a warning, this is a rough one. But before we dive in, I want to let you know about my second channel called Grim Tales, where I am covering stories that are shocking but not murderous. I think if you find this content interesting, then you should go and see what's over there. Link to the channel is in the comments. And if you find this video interesting, then please drop it a like. And if you will, please go and follow my Instagram. I really appreciate it. Thank you. This video is created solely for educational and documentary purposes. Do you want to show me without a mask? I'm scary. This is what Oksana said before an interview with a Russian news publication. The tragic events began in July 2023. Oksana, a 40-year-old recruitment manager, met 32-year-old Oleg near her apartment. Oleg was a welder at a local garage. They began dating soon after, and initially everything seemed fine. Oleg was attentive, courteous, and charming. Oksana often stayed at his place since she was living with her mother, and they spent most of their time together. However, just a few weeks into their relationship, Oleg's jealous side began to surface. Oksana had asked Oleg for the number of a man who worked at the same garage. This man painted cars, and it was a service both herself and her friends needed. However, Oleg vehemently refused. He demanded that Oksana not keep any other men's numbers on her phone from that point forward. This was a glaring red flag for Oksana, but the situation soon escalated further. Oleg forced Oksana to transfer money to his friends' bank accounts, essentially threatening her to comply. Then Oksana found out about his past. She found out he had a wife and 2 kids that he had kept a secret from her. She also found out about Oleg's criminal past. 2 years prior, he had been serving a prison sentence for severely beating a man. There was also a history of more beatings and theft. In total, Oleg had 6 convictions. Realizing the toxicity of the relationship and the secrets he had kept from her were too much to bear, Oksana ended the relationship after 3 months. She moved back in with her mother, trying to put this dark chapter behind her. For Oksana, it was a relief, but for Oleg, it was a trigger. His mind was set on revenge. On the evening of October 24th, 2023, Oleg went to Oksana's mother's house, but she wasn't there. He then stood in the car park and waited for her return. When she did arrive, Oleg approached the car and shouted, "Get in the passenger seat, quickly." Gripped by fear, Oksana complied. Oleg then broke the car park gates to escape, speeding off towards the garage where he worked. This is where her horrific ordeal would begin. On the way, Oksana tried to reason with him. "Let's talk," she pleaded. "Why switch to physical violence? You can find out everything humanely." But Oleg, already intoxicated and lost in a world of his own, was determined to carry out the attack that he had been planning. As soon as they arrived at the garage, Oleg dragged Oksana out of the car and threw her into a corner. Without hesitation, he began beating her with a bat, pummeling her over and over again. After a while, he got tired and took a break, playing loud music as he smoked a cigarette. As soon as he finished, he resumed the brutal assault with the bat. By the time he finally stopped, Oksana was a mess of battered bones and terror. But this was only the beginning of her ordeal. Oleg shouted, "Now I'll nail your legs. Take off your shoes." He was deadly serious. Grabbing a small plank of wood, he pulled off Oksana's shoe and hammered a nail through her leg, impaling it. Then he took a corkscrew-like object and screwed it into her other leg. He tied her to the ground with rope and wire. He also hammered nails through various body parts, including her hands, immobilizing her in agony. Oleg doused Oksana's body with petrol from a canister. He then pulled out a cigarette and lighter. Oleg set her feet on fire with the lighter. As her body was engulfed in flames, Oleg just watched whilst he smoked his cigarette. Once he finished smoking, he extinguished the flames with a fire extinguisher and then tore the skin from Oksana's right hand. Oksana was in shock. "I need to kill you before 4 a.m, Oleg repeated. His plan was to kill and bury her in a secluded wooded area. He threw her into the back of the car and drove off. As they drove, he told her, "Ask God for forgiveness. You don't have long to live." Despite her shock, Oksana prayed, finding inner strength. She knew it was now or never. Summoning all her courage, she attempted to jump from the car. Oleg tried to grab her, but as he did, he lost control of the vehicle and crashed into the car in front. With the car now at a standstill, Oleg fled the scene on foot. Oksana remained in the car and begged for help. Witnesses immediately called for an ambulance and the police. Oksana's condition was dire. She spent 9 days in intensive care, suffering from fractured ribs, severe burns on her face, arms, legs and head, and countless wounds, including 2 gaping holes in her legs. She had also lost a lot of weight. Incredibly, she still managed to survive. Skin grafts were used on some parts of her body, but not all could be saved. Oksana later said, "I have burns around my mouth, which is why I can't fully open it. I use a special spoon for food. My lower lip is also very turned out. I need expensive compression underwear and silicone gels. I can't work or claim disability. Friends help as much as they can." I find this really tragic. Not only does she have to deal with the physical and mental side of her attack, but she is also struggling to provide for herself as she can no longer work. Tragic. Oleg was caught the same night of the crime, under interrogation and in court. He always said, "I loved her," claiming that even though he set her on fire, he never intended to kill her. Oksana demanded the harshest punishment possible for Oleg, and in the end, he was sentenced to 12 years in a strict colony for attempted murder with extreme cruelty. Oksana filed a lawsuit against Oleg, but her lawyer said that she was unlikely to receive any financial compensation. Oleg has 6 convictions, no savings, and no real estate. The only potential source of penalties is his salary if he works in a colony or inherits something. Adding to Oksana's distress, Oleg may not serve much of his prison sentence, as he is appealing his conviction, but also he has applied to serve 6 months in the Russian army. Inmates can serve in extremely dangerous frontline positions as poorly trained and ill-equipped soldiers. They are essentially used as cannon fodder, but if they can survive 6 months, they receive a pardon for their crimes. Oleg's lawyer stated, taking part in the war, he would be able to make amends to her. It's scary to think that someone like Oleg could be walking the streets again so soon after committing such a horrific crime. But I am grateful that Oksana managed to survive. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay sane.